in collaboration with the Cyprus Mail. This is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Charalambous.
Coming up on the programme this week, a demonstration last weekend highlighted the injustices in our social insurance system. Migrant workers from third countries took to the streets to demand fairer treatment. They pay millions into the social insurance fund each year and get absolutely nothing back.
And it's not just a moral aspect, it's not just the importance for these people, it's not just their rights. We have a clear obligation according to the community law.
On a lighter note, we will ask, what is magic, as the Pharos Arts Foundation prepares to host an unusual 3 evenings.
Magic is to entertain with deception, and entertain comes first.
And the upcoming Weeks of German Language kick off with cultural events, films, brunches and much more.
Present the variety and the richness of German culture in all facets. And this year we put a particular focus on 30 years of the fall of the Berlin Wall.
On Sunday this last weekend, KISA, that's the NGO that stands for Equality, Support and Anti-Racism, helped organise a mobilisation of migrant workers for equal access to social insurance benefits. Now, that might not seem important to some people, but it's, I think, since the mid-1990s that third country nationals here have paid in their social insurance contributions, but when they return to their home countries, because there's no agreement between Cyprus and those countries, they actually get no benefits whatsoever. Cyprus, in the meantime, has pocketed some considerable amount of money. So Doros Polikarpou from KISA joins us now to explain the ins and the outs, and indeed, I'm sure, the support that you had from migrant workers when this happened last Sunday. First of all, Doros, put us in the picture about what they put in and what they don't get out. It's so unfair.
Well, it's interesting, but a very rough estimation. Third country nationals pay since 1991. In average, we say the first 4 years we had fewer people, but then we reached a situation where we had up to 90,000 registered third country nationals before we entered the European Union. So in average, we estimate that the people paid 5 million euros per month on the social insurance scheme, and they were not able to take access, so to have any access to the benefits of this scheme, and mainly pension for them, which is the most important aspect. Of course, it's very important for them because some of these people, they don't have any other schemes in their countries, so it's the only resource for them to secure their pension, and it's a very unfair and discriminatory praxis. It's not a coincidence that the people, they don't have access to this. Several times the governments, Filipino government, the Sri Lankan government approached the Cypriot government and asked to sign agreements. Cyprus was very active to sign agreements with Canada, with Australia, and some other countries that we have Cypriots that they can transfer their contributions. But of course, we did as if we didn't understand when it came to bilateral agreements with countries that third country national workers can benefit of in Cyprus.
So does this mean, for example, that if a Cypriot goes to work in the Philippines and they pay social insurance there, they can't access it when they come back here?
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same unless of course, the Filipino government will pay a lump sum amount. Otherwise, without such a bilateral agreement, they cannot transfer this amount either in both directions. Of course, in this, we know that the reality is that for some of these countries, the migrant workers, they support their whole families. And it's not just a moral aspect, it's not just the importance for these people, it's not just their rights. We have a clear obligation according to the community law. The legal framework we have right now It's problematic from the legal point of view for two main reasons. First of all, the criteria that we apply, they are indirect discrimination and prohibited by the law, because the criteria are put in a way so that migrants, and in combination with our migration system, so the people cannot reach the foreseen points in order to have access to these benefits. So if you have a migration system that you tell the people you can only work as a domestic worker and you earn per month 320 euro, which means that your contributions are something like 100 euro per month. So it's impossible to expect the people, if you don't allow them to pay more in this social insurance scheme and you don't allow them to work longer than 6 years, it means you have to adapt your criteria for this scheme in a way so that these people, they have access. Otherwise, if your criteria, they are based on the assumption that the people work 20 years with a salary of the minimum income of 900 euro, of course, these people will never have access to it. So,
all right, but just a minute, I'm not clear on this. Even if we don't change the law that says you can only come here and work for a maximum of 6 years as a domestic servant, you are still paying your pot into the social insurance. Why, when you go back to your country, if we signed an agreement, would that not be accessible to you upon retirement? It wouldn't be much, but at least it wouldn't just be disappearing into a hole which apparently is spent by the Cyprus government.
Yes, but you can imagine, it's 5 million. It's a huge amount of money. We speak now about the last 30 years. It's an enormous amount of money that these people pay, and they don't have any access at all to these benefits.
Do they have access while they're here to healthcare, for example? I mean, people who pay in their social insurance, it's not just the pension. I know you've been talking about pensions, but what other benefits do Cypriots or EU nationals get when they're paying social insurance in Cyprus?
Well, they have sick leave from the social insurance scheme. They have pensions, they have unemployment benefits. None of this applies for third country nationals because, as we know, health insurance, domestic workers have to pay their private health insurance. So it means that they don't use the social insurance scheme to cover their health care. And we have, of course, now there is a change, and slowly, with improvement of the new general health system, domestic workers and third country nationals will have equal access to the health care with Cypriots, but until now, for the last 30 years, these people, they didn't have.
Okay, so that's something we could say is a positive.
It's a positive
that
development
is coming
in this direction.
through.
Yes, of course.
All these people
But still, what you said is important, because we have three options right now. One option is we sign bilateral agreements with this country so that the people, at any moment they return back, they can transfer their contributions to their countries.
That seems so simple, Doros. Why don't we just do it? What would Cyprus lose by doing it?
The money, the contributions of the people. We all know that there is a big hole in this and big gap in the contribution scheme, in the social insurance scheme. And of course, if we deduct this amount of money every year, this will put more burden and more increase the obligation of the Cypriot government.
Well, I'm sorry,
to subsidize.
This is theft.
Of course,
pure and simple. Okay,
of course, it's
theft by the authorities in Cyprus of workers' hard-earned social insurance benefits. I can't think of another way to put it. Now, what does the government say about what it's not doing?
Think how immoral it is from the point of view of those that they complain on a daily basis that these are the people that they take advantage from our social insurance, our social network.
You're talking about
the welfare system.
All right, hang on a minute. You're talking about the sort of things you see on social media saying these third country nationals are getting free healthcare, free this, free that. They're actually getting nothing, and we are stealing from them their contributions, which when they go home mean they have nothing towards a pension and no other, if you like, official papers that say they have been paying in.
Of course, they don't have anything. And have in mind that they don't have also the welfare system that we have here that will enable the people without pension to have access at least as a minimum income. If they go back in their country and they don't have pension, they don't have anything. They are left completely in their old age without any financial support. This is a completely different dimension if we see this from this point of view. So in my opinion, our obligation is either to sign these bilateral agreements or to modify the system so that the people will have access according to the height of their contributions to apply at any moment and get access to pension directly from Cyprus. They can leave their contributions here if they want, and then they can apply. But then they have to change the criteria so that they can be adapted to the contributions of the domestic workers. Right now, they cannot do it. And the third possibility, obligation, actually legal obligation, none of these two systems are not put in place. The government has the obligation to pay the contribution in cash to the people when they leave the country. This is a legal complication according to ILO conventions. This is a legal obligation that we have for several years now, and we do as if we don't understand with the single permit directive. And it's time the government to act on it and make the system more justice for these people.
So this March, they were talking about changes required either to give these people the lump sum of their contributions when they leave to return to their own countries, or the possibility, seems to me like possibly not the better option because of the time it will take and the paperwork, and we know the delays in the system here, that when they reach retirement age in their country, just like European workers get this much from France if they worked in France, that much from the UK if they worked in the UK, and this much from Cyprus if they worked in Cyprus. It's all worked out. That's a bit more complicated, but if we put them on the same footing, they would then, when they reach retirement age in their country, be able to draw however meagre a pension from what they contributed in Cyprus.
Exactly. This is the obligation, and this is a practical solution, and I think we need urgently to work in this direction. And that was the reason of this demonstration. We wanted to raise awareness about this issue. We wanted to put pressure on the authorities to negotiate. We spoke with diplomatic bodies and representations of these countries. They are willing, and they already approached the Cypriot government. The Sri Lankan consulate as well as the Filipino consulate asked several times the Cypriot government to start a discussion and negotiation about this.
And what was the answer?
Until now, there was always a promise that we are going to see this later for several years now. It seems that as the result of the tragic events of the serial killings we had recently, I think one of the agreement that the government made with the countries and the diplomatic bodies representation of these countries is that they will open this discussion and proceed with agreements in this direction.
Opening a discussion is one thing, and we know how long discussions can take here in Cyprus, don't we? Let's see if anything comes of that, and if so, how long it takes to make life rather fairer for the many, many thousands of migrant workers who are here working legally, often for a pittance, and then going home without their social insurance contributions. Very unfair indeed. We've been talking to Doros Polikarpou from KISA. That's the NGO dealing with equality, support and anti-racism.
In collaboration with the Cyprus Mail, this is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Charalambous.
The biggest achievement of Crime Stoppers has been the ability of the public to be able to give information about crime anonymously.
There's no way I could have kept prostituting without the drugs. There's no way I could have had my body used like a public toilet, because that's actually what prostitution is.
And then the fourth series I started 3 days after I'd won the Oscar, so the whole of the Monarch of the Glen experience was all interplatted with the Gosford Park Oscar experience.
I was working with Ronnie James Dio, and David was going to reform Whitesnake in 2003.
Cyprus was chosen because Cyprus is a stable, peaceful and secure place.
We have to really look closely. What are we doing with children? What are we doing with adolescents? And what are we doing with adults that can help them move into a more literate situation?
The ones that I'm proudest of are the ones that were true discoveries, where we found something we didn't know existed.
The Pharos Arts Foundation is well known across Cyprus for all the musical concerts that it puts on throughout the year, be it classical music, jazz or contemporary music. They're very much part of the cultural scene in Cyprus. One of their venues is the Shoe Factory in Old Nicosia, and it's a nice cosy place, but unusually next week it will be playing host to a magic show. And joining us on this week's programme is the man himself. Dimis Michailidis is a member of the International Brotherhood of Magicians, and he will be the host at the Shoe Factory on 3 nights next week. He joins us now. Dimi, what was it that got you interested in magic in the first place?
I got into magic when I was 30 years old. That's when I started. At that time I was living and working in the United States. So I first bought lots of tricks in magic shops, and then I stopped doing that and took some proper instruction from a great magician.
What made you want to do magic? I mean, I know it's something that kids love to do, but age 30, why did you suddenly think, I'm going to do magic tricks?
It's not a kid's thing. Please do not think it's a kid's thing. My show is an adult show, by the way. I discourage people who are under 15 to come, not because there's any foul language or anything. There's nothing like that. However, the tricks are not designed for an audience of children.
So you're not pulling rabbits out of a hat or anything like that?
No, I don't use animals in my shows, no. However, to come back to your question, why magic? It's a very interesting craft. The craft becomes an art if you're giving people the message, not just the message, oh, I fooled you, but if you give them something more than that as well. So, to quote my own magic mentor, an American magician called Eugene Berger, he once wrote that magic is to entertain with deception. And entertain comes first. And it's a very beautiful art because it incorporates the element of surprise.
It's based basically, is it not, on psychology and the way we have developed our perception of things, because it is not just sleight of hand, it's knowing that if you say keep your eye on that, the chances are people will do just that rather than look at what else is going on.
Well, if you tell people keep your eye on that, they will probably look somewhere else, because people, especially adults, are suspicious. So are children, by the way, but adults are especially suspicious. So yes, you do need to direct people's attentions, and the way you do, there are lots of ways of doing that. So magic is partly sleight of hand, it is part psychology, if you like. Most important, it's a communication with the audience.
So what sort of tricks do you do? Are we talking card tricks, tricks with coins, what?
Well, in this particular show, which is called What is Magic, and throughout the show I will keep asking the question, what is magic? What does it mean for you? There will be card games, there will be coin games, con games, a little bit of vampire and voodoo as well, and things that will mess with people's minds.
How long does the show go on for? And from what you've just said, it's interactive.
Yes, it's a 1 hour show for 20 people, maybe 22 maximum, around a table.
So what do you think it is that attracts people to magic? I mean, why do people go and see a magic show?
I believe for a number of reasons. First of all, there is something that is unknown to people. In some ways, it's breaking the link between cause and effect. It's making something impossible actually happen before their very eyes. And at the same time, as a performance art, it includes the element of surprise. And people enjoy being surprised.
Other people don't like being surprised, and there are people who wouldn't go to a magic show if you paid them. Why?
That's a very good question. I think I believe most people like magic. There are some people who don't. Why don't they? A very small number, they just don't. There is maybe a number who fear the fact that other people know something that they don't know, or they can't live without knowing how something happened, so they feel a little bit intimidated. But that's a very small number. The larger number that doesn't like magic is those that have been to a terrible magic show. And there are terrible magic shows happening, unfortunately, all the time. And many of us have some Uncle Joe who was teaching us or showing us coin tricks when we didn't want to see them when we were 7 or 8 years old. Uncle Joe would come and say, "Here, I'll show you another trick." And we didn't really want to do that, so we hated magic from that age.
All right, let's come to the show itself. You mentioned when we were chatting before something about songs.
Yes. I say, in fact, in the description of the show, there will be stories, there will be songs sung by me and my audience.
Regardless of whether they're any good at singing?
Oh, I don't do auditions. They will sing. They will sing if they want to sing.
Okay, so it is, as we said, interactive. Now then, it's happening on the 24th, the 25th and the 26th of October at the Shoe Factory in Old Nicosia. Places, as we've mentioned, are very limited. It'll be a small, cosy gathering. So if you want to book your ticket, you need to do it pretty sharpish, I would think. And where can people book their tickets and how much do they cost?
Where can they book their tickets? They call Pharos Arts Foundation between 10 and 3 o'clock on working days. They call the number 22663871. The show costs €20 per person. This includes a welcome glass of wine starting from 7:30. The show itself will begin at 8.
That is Dimis Michailidis. And What is Magic? The title of that show. So if you're fascinated by the subject, book your ticket now.
Keep up to date with events in Cyprus and around the world with the Cyprus News Digest.
The embassies of Austria, Germany and Switzerland, along with the Goethe Institute in Cyprus, will launch this year's Weeks of the German Language with an open-air event at Fane Romani Square in Old Nicosia on October the 20th. The launch event includes music by the Windcraft Band, there'll be a beatbox performance, and visitors will also have the opportunity to taste delights from the 3 German-speaking countries and to watch a demonstration of one of the oldest national sports of Switzerland, flag throwing. Well, we learnt that and more when the 3 ambassadors of Austria, Germany and Switzerland talked to the press prior to the opening of the event. And I spoke to the ambassadors after they'd outlined the programme to the press, starting with the Austrian ambassador, Eva Maria Ziegler, who outlined the main message her country was trying to promote during the events.
A message of unity and diversity, and to me the musical program is especially important with this trio consisting of representatives of the Cyprus Bicommunal Chamber Orchestra, and I think to pass a message how to unify people through the power of music and of culture.
And of language, of course.
And of language
How
also.
many people in Cyprus actually speak German? Do you have any idea?
A few thousand. I don't think it's more than that, unfortunately, but we're trying to make the number grow.
Next, I spoke to His Excellency Yves-Pierre Fuchs, the Ambassador of Switzerland.
German is one of our main national languages. It's even the most spoken. We share a lot of values, of art, of different aspects of what makes life beautiful and interesting, and we would like to share that with the public in Cyprus.
And what have you got coming up during these weeks?
We are going to display a documentary film on migration, accompanied by some roundtable discussions. We want to share reflection, and of course we work together with all our partners in the launching event in Van Romini Square and in a beautiful musical concert.
And finally, the German ambassador, Franz Josef Kremp. What's in it for you? What are your thoughts about bringing an event, and it's been going on for many years now, of this nature to the Cypriot public? North and south, we should say.
Yes, we are very happy that we can bring a program to the north and to the south, to both communities. We find it is very efficient that we join forces with the other German-speaking countries and present the variety and the richness of German culture in all facets. And this year we put a particular focus on 30 years of the fall of the Berlin Wall as the symbol of a major change that has taken place in the whole of Middle Eastern Europe.
The fall of the Berlin Wall is something that, of course, the younger generation perhaps are not particularly aware of. What have you got during the coming weeks on the programme that's going to bring that straight to them?
I mean, young people who haven't lived through it will certainly profit from a documentary we show, but also by a presentation of the events that developed in the year 1989 in Middle Eastern Europe. And I think what is particularly interesting is to hear eyewitnesses. People who have done very different things, not politicians, not particularly involved in it, but by pure coincidence having been there. Not necessarily only Germans, we have also Cypriots who will be asked what they remember, what is imprinted in their memory of the events 30 years ago.
And, of course, could it be extrapolated to Cyprus? We may not have a physical wall like Berlin had, but we have a separation. And it was brought down in Germany by the people.
I'm always very, very careful to compare situations. Every situation is very different. Let me put it that way. In Germany at that moment of time, you had the overwhelming majority of the population in East and West, it was far over 90%, who desperately wanted to come together and wanted unification.
But they achieved that by people power.
Yes, entirely. But there was no way to stop the will of the people.
Well, that's one of the documentaries. There are many, many more. The programme, I'm sure you can find if you Google Weeks of the German Language. And I'm pretty sure there's probably a Facebook page, is there, with this?
Yes, the Facebook page will be online in the next 2-3 days. Certainly you can find it also on the websites of the 3 embassies and the Goethe Institute.
The ambassadors of Austria, Switzerland and Germany there, talking about the upcoming Weeks of the German Language.
You can subscribe to the Cyprus News Digest on iTunes for free and get the program downloaded to your phone or tablet so you can listen anytime, anywhere.
And finally, before I go, a story that really could only happen, couldn't it, in Cyprus? It's gone viral on social media. It's all about a bicycle path in Limassol, and the pictures show that it's crooked, it crosses roads, it goes around parked cars, and has been described as shameful. The project for the bicycle path's construction is funded by the European Union, and it was meant to join the city centre's paths with those of the western part of Limassol and then on to Ladies' Mile. The Municipal Council has promised to investigate. Quite what the people who were painting the path thought is beyond anybody's imagination. But then we do have a saying here, only in Cyprus. Well, that about wraps up this edition of the Cyprus News Digest. Many thanks for your company. Hope you'll join me next week. Till we meet again, take care and God bless. Bye-bye now.